things going. That's always fun. And last but not least, if you want to have a discussion with Devin about your perspective on aliens, or you have any other questions you want to ask, you can always send us an email. Email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And I believe that's all our contact information, and I think, believe it or not, that's all that we've got on this particular show.
Yeah, we stretched it as long as we could, but we can't go any further.
No.
Something's about to snap.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, and thanks again for this listener suggestion. This was a lot of fun. Sorry it took me so long to get to it, but it was definitely a fun one. So we will
thanks, Ed.
talk to you next week.
Ta-ta.
Aliens, guys.
You think so?
Thinking sideways.
I don't understand. You never know.
Stories that tell we just don't understand.
Well, hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Steve. As always, I'm joined by
Devin.
And Joe.
And this is Thinking Sideways, and
The podcast.
The podcast.
Yeah.
The podcast. There's imitators,
The one
but this
and only.
is the podcast.
The OG podcast.
OG?
Original? Oh my gosh.
I know what OG means. I'm just shocked that you're using it. Well, yeah, we just shattered that. Okay. Well, before we get into tonight's show, I just kind of want to give everybody a little bit of an idea of what's going on here today. This is the beginning of something special. It's very special. Special as in what we're going to be doing for this month. This show will be coming out on the first week of October. And for the entire month of October, since it's that month, that spooky, spooky month, we're going to do stories that are kind of based around Halloween spooky stories.
Yeah, like my story's going to be Casper the Friendly Ghost, fact or fiction.
Thankfully, Joe's not going to do that story.
Let me get some clanking chains. Hang on.
Now, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a teaser, and that is that at the end of the month, we're going to be doing a show that is what I would consider kind of a big Halloween favorite.
I would say that's true.
Yeah, it's pretty scary
We've
stuff.
gotten lots of requests for it.
We have, and I think that's all we're going to tell people.
Okay.
We're just going to leave you on the hook. You're going to have to wait the next couple of weeks. 4 of them.
Yeah, actually, though, if you can guess, send us an email if you want to take a guess. If you guess correctly, then you'll get a free Thinking Sideways T-shirt if we ever start making them. And so if you want to just let me say it's a very well-known thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that
So please take a guess.
is it. And as they say, on with the show. Today's story takes place in Stull, Kansas, which is about 50 miles from Kansas City or Missouri, or it's about 10 miles outside
10 miles
of Lawrence.
outside of Lawrence, Kansas. Yeah. And everybody knows where that is.
Of course,
So, yeah.
of course.
I do.
And there's quite it's been quite a legend around that area. It's pretty well known, and depending on the sources, this story has been around for anywhere from 50 to 100 plus years.
Wow.
Yeah, although it seems to. Well, we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah.
Just quickly, though, let me describe Stull, because I got on Google Street View this afternoon and
This
looked
is his
at
favorite
it.
thing.
And, I know. And so it's a tiny little town of, 20 or 30 people or something like that. Not very many people live there. And by the way, when I was cruising through on Google Street View, not a soul was evident. Not a single human being was in sight.
Well,
Now, that was kind of creepy.
The story itself from this creepy little town, according to Joe, all centers around the cemetery in that town. And in that cemetery, supposedly,
Is a gateway to hell.
so here's the legend. In 1867, a church was built where currently the Stull Cemetery is located. And that church was eventually abandoned, and it fell into disrepair. Maybe part of the reason is the fact that behind the church is a set of stairs which, according to the legend, opens up on Halloween, and from it emerges Satan himself.
Oh.
That's right, Old Scratch. And why? Do you know why?
Well, because
he
hell.
He wants to get a breath of fresh air, maybe.
Well, yeah, probably.
To reclaim the souls of the damned.
Well, there's actually a lot of supposed reasons why Satan comes out of this stairway on Halloween, at midnight on Halloween every year.
Okay.
And this is kind of a laundry list.
Is it just the one night, or is there another night?
Okay, well, depends on the accounts.
Yeah, I thought
there's
there were
Halloween. There's the spring or summer equinox, supposedly. I mean, people account a lot of different days.
And it's at midnight.
But it's always at midnight.
Interesting.
Always at midnight.
Oh, I have such a problem with that time, but okay, sure.
Why?
Well, okay, so in pretty much all of the accepted Christian lore, the hour of the witching hour, almost the hour of the beast, is actually 3 a.m. So it's always interesting when people are like, "Oh yeah, it's midnight," because that's for whatever reason not nearly as credible. There we go, is the word I was looking for. It's not nearly as credible or mysterious and believable to me as when people are like, "Oh, it was at almost 3 a.m."
Yeah,
I think it's got something to do with the clock hitting and the night spinning. I don't know. There's all kinds. It's always midnight. You're right.
Midnight has always had that sort of creepiness about it, or for some reason. Just the very word midnight. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go through this list of supposed reasons as to why Satan himself comes out every night. The first is that the graveyard, which the church is located on, sits on one of the 7 points on this planet where the devil has his gateways.
Wait.
Run with me here.
Okay.
There's 7 gateways to hell on this planet. Supposedly one of them is located somewhere in India, and according to legend, it just happens to be that Stull, Kansas houses one of those very spots.
So they just had the bad luck to build their church right atop of a stairway to hell.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
they had a really bad surveyor.
I don't know. I would guess that there was some kind of there was a draw there because there was so much evil and they felt the need to cleanse it. But
and we'll go into some of that stuff.
Sure.
But let me just kind of run through this.
But you would think that Satan would put some warning signs up saying, "Don't build here." I mean,
because that's the way he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a real warner.
He wants you to build there.
Yeah.
All right, the next is that location was a favorite spots for witches to practice black arts. And they do this because of the fact that this place is a focal point for black magic. Again, if I'm guessing this is based on it being a gateway, this focus, one of the 7 points on the planet. And also because there's a large pine tree on the grounds that was used to hang at one time witches.
I just feel like this is a chicken egg scenario.
Yeah, well, let me keep going.
Okay.
We got a tree to talk about here.
Oh, right. Sorry.
The tree has been in the graveyard evidently for decades, and up until several years ago when it was cut down. But evidently there was a headstone at the base of the tree, and the tree had grown up and around this headstone and eventually split it apart, which is something that people point to as evidence that it's an evil place.
That's just kind of what tree roots do. It's like,
Yeah, I know.
Oh, man.
Let's see. The next one is that Satan is visiting a dead witch who was at one time his bride, who's buried there.
Yeah, as we saw in the thrilling documentary of Corpse Bride.
Oh, I didn't see that one. I'm putting that on my list.
Before I get too far off, I'm pretty sure. Do either of you ever watch that TV show Supernatural?
No.
It's on my list.
It's not on anymore, right?
I think it might be done. I watched some of it.
That's about the two brothers who.
Yeah, but evidently,
I saw that a couple of times.
there was an episode where they actually played off of this whole Gateway to Hell install, and there was a season finale where they were shutting the Gateway to Hell, and it was installed.
And they were inside them. They were shutting the gateway to hell. They were closing it from. It was closed on them.
They were closing it to stop the evil from escaping.
Oh, nice.
I haven't seen the episode. I just happened to find something that related to it, and then read it on IMDb.
And they put a good stout padlock on it.
I think a lot of concrete.
Yeah.
Okay. The next reason that Satan would be coming out at that location, he's visiting a son that he had with a witch And that son was so deformed that he only lived for a few days. And according to the legend, the ghost of this boy appears on Halloween as a werewolf and scares or chases people off of the grounds or prowls around the woods and scares people.
How many supernatural legends can we cram into one theory?
Oh, just wait.
Oh, are there
We got more.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Actually, we should tack a few more on while we're at it.
Well, let me before you
Let's grow the legend.
start working on these. Let me just give you the rest of them.
I got to say the story about Satan's son who was deformed and died. Maybe feel really sorry for Satan.
Next up,
Okay.
the legends, and this is again another reason that it's so haunted and so terrible, is that in the 1850s, the mayor of the town of Stull was stabbed to death by a stable hand in a stone barn that was on the cemetery grounds. And I'm guessing the idea behind that is that it's desecrations of hallowed ground. I've got to guess that's why this would be a reason, but I'm not sure.
Like the Indian grave thing.
Right, this is a hallowed site, and then you commit murder.
Although I guess that would mean that no more than 17 years later, but probably like 10 years later, they built a church on top of that building. So that's so weird.
In the 1850s, the mayor of the town was stabbed, and that's what that attracted Satan to it, or it was the gateway was already there, and that's why he emerged
I think
from
it attracted Satan. Again, it's that
okay, so it
it's
attracted
committing
him.
murder on hallowed ground.
So it wasn't hallowed ground at that
It was
point?
a cemetery at that
Yeah.
time, which is theoretically, according, is supposed to be when it's a some kind of religious burial area. It's a whatever. I can't remember. It was Germanic people that had settled the area and had made the graveyard, and suddenly I can't remember whether they were Catholic or what, but if it's at that point, it's a graveyard, it's a hallowed piece of ground.
Yeah, but it was in a barn on a graveyard, so
How does that make a difference?
I don't know. It just does in my mind.
I think what we need to do is actually that there's a really cool graveyard not far from where I live. It's a very old pioneer graveyard. Let's go murder somebody there and see if a stairway to hell appears.
Okay, on to the next one.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for making Halloween just got weirder. Thanks, Joe. Here's our next one. In the early 1900s, and I don't have a year, but this will be, between 1900 and 1910 when everybody calls it the 1900s. I'm guessing that's the time range we're looking at. A boy was accidentally burned to death by his own father while he was burning a field. So dad's burning the field, doesn't realize the boy's in the field, and it kills him.
The boy's too slow to just walk out of the field.
Or dies from smoke inhalation. I don't know for sure. And then a few years later, a man in the town was found hanging from a tree, and I have to presume it's that same pine tree. And both of these took place near a road that was known as Devil's Road, which appeared on old maps of Stull, but it doesn't exist anymore, so it's not a modern road. You can't go on Google Maps and find it. But some of the hype may be the fact that Stull is located. Also, this is another thing to kind of go in that same vein, is that in the state, Stull is in the Topeka zip code, and that's evidently has the prefix of 666, the mark of the beast.
This attracted Satan to the spot.
I'm guessing.
I thought we're still.
This is on the laundry list of things that are built up around why Satan might be coming there. I can't point to one.
He was attracted to the 666 postal code.
Yeah.
Which didn't come into existence until when? The 1960s?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, are we going to discuss the fact that it turns out that 666 is actually like a misinterpretation? It's not actually.
We can actually talk about that right now. I mean, what do we? I don't remember what is the translation correct.
It's like 661 or something. Or
I heard 6696 is one possible interpretation of it.
It's not 666, whatever it is.
Yeah, I know that.
That it's a misinterpretation, and the
That reminds me. I saw this whole laundry list in this humorous email that was rocketing around. It was like all these different numbers, 666, 66, 6666, Social Security number of the beast. And they ripped on the whole thing. They had like 20 of these things.
Okay.
Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah, because we're not done yet with the reasons why Satan might be coming to this place. And I should probably just go ahead and say something right now, which is this story kind of has the feel of a very urban legend.
Yeah.
It's totally got the urban legend feel.
bit.
So I think everybody who's listening has probably figured that out by now, but I just want to say that, which is why I want to get all of these supposed reasons out there and out of the way.
Yeah, if you're already packing your bags and then gassing up your car to drive to Kansas to go look at this place, hold off a bit till we get to the end of the episode.
Yeah, because you'll find a few things. Now, this doesn't say exactly why he's going to that location, but one of the things that it's believed he's doing by coming out at midnight on Halloween is that he's gathering up all of the souls in the area, and by the area, I don't know how big that is. I don't know what that denotes. Is that the continental U.S., or is that just that area code? I don't know.
I like it that he operates by zip code. I think that's kind of cool.
But he's gathering up all of the souls in the area who died of a violent death that year to then parade them around the earth for one more night before taking them back to hell.
Nice. Although, just because somebody died a violent death doesn't mean they're going to go to hell.
True.
Yeah. Of course, you never know. Maybe you do go to hell for dying a violent death. You know, if you weren't smart enough to outwit your adversary, maybe God sends you to hell for that.
So, sorry, you guys were talking about something, but I was busy off in Google land. So I found the number of the beast, the actual number. It's 616. Well, okay, no, I'm sorry. Google says it's 616.66666.
Oh, really?
So it's not a whole number.
They finally calculated it out.
A
Right
whole
on.
number. So I
This
guess
is the world's hardest math equation.
You gotta love
technically,
science, huh?
I guess it's 617 because you round up. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So so FYI, every listener, that is the number of the beast.
So it's 616.6666666.
Repeating infinity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know where that number comes from and why a fraction is attached to it, but
Does the devil have a wiki page?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, we
Maybe.
should check.
Okay.
We'll look it up later.
Well, let's keep
Sorry.
going.
Sorry.
That's all right. I like that. Okay, well, and this is just more to add to the legend, less of a reason why Satan would come around. But thanks to his presence, evidently, strange things happen in the graveyard. And these are a lot of this is some reports on All Hallows Eve, Halloween. People keep saying that they are reporting strange moaning noises. That the old church that's on the property on the graveyard, that church that was built, still had a crucifix on the wall, and evidently on Halloween the crucifix would spin 180 degrees so that it was upside down, which kind of sounds like pranksters to me. And I also don't know that it would still be attached to the wall, but hey, that's what people say is happening.
You would think somebody would have stolen it a long time ago.
You would. And actually, there's a lot of focus on the church. The church that's on this site has spawned and helped foster a lot of the stories and the legends. The church itself in the early 1900s caught fire for reasons unknown. I could never find out what caused the fire. It was never recorded anywhere that I could track down.
Probably caused by something flammable.
Or Satan.
That's usually, or could have been Satan.
But after it caught fire, it stopped being used. And some people are saying that the religious community actually destroyed the church themselves in an effort to seal the gateway to hell.
So they burned it themselves?
Yeah. And because it wasn't maintained for so long, the roof of the church actually blew off many years ago. Like in a big windstorm, just ripped off. So it's a building with no roof.
This sounds so much like an episode of True Detective. I can't even tell you.
I remember that church.
Yeah.
But being open to the sky it seems to be one thing that helps some of the stories. It seems to help the idea that witches and black magic are taking place there.
Well, yeah, because they can get in on their flying broomsticks now.
Yeah. And they're not going to be seen by anybody when they're doing their their practices. According to the stories, when it rained in the area, water would not fall on the inside of the church, but instead would run off as if the roof was still there.
Well, obviously the rain didn't get the news.
Evidently. There are reports that strong winds were actually happening inside of the church. So this is kind of that poltergeist area where there's just strange cold spots and winds out of nowhere. And there was one guy who said that the wind was so strong it knocked him over and, quote, held him down and wouldn't let him up for a while.
So, and they were probably hot winds, and they smelled of sulfur and all that stuff.
Never heard that part. Nobody ever commented on the temperature, which was a little funny to me. For that same reason.
I just can't wait for the theories for this.
I know. But we've still got some more things that are about the church.
Man.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot here. There's glass bottles. So I don't know if you guys had come across this, but they...
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, some people say, and they are adamant about this, that if you threw a glass bottle at the interior wall of the church on Halloween, it wouldn't break. Or if you held 2 glass bottles in the shape of the cross and hit them against the wall, they wouldn't break. Which is a little... odd, but that also then spawns people to say that, well, if you did throw a bottle at the wall and it did break, then you were going to hell.
Oh, it's so convenient. It's so convenient. I just, for a second, these kinds of stories are just, the worst, right? Because you're like, well, it didn't break for me, but if it breaks for you, you're going to hell. Which is, it allows for the fact that, anybody who has, a fine grasp of physics or, feels like they want to do it, they are going to go and it's going to break and they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to hell.
Or I have a really thick wine bottle and you have a very thin-walled vodka bottle.
There's always that, yeah.
Yeah.
Even beer bottles don't break as easily as you would think. So
No.
I remember many years ago, I was out with a friend and we were kind of bored. And so we decided to make a Molotov cocktail. So we poured some gasoline into a Rainier Pounder, which is a 16-inch beer bottle, which is actually... not as heavily built as, say, a long neck bottle, like you'd find a Bud in or something like that. Those have thicker walls than the old Rainier Pounders. And so we stuffed a rag in it, and then it was about half filled with gasoline. Stuffed a rag in it.
I'm so afraid where this is going.
Oh no, it was. And so we go out to the middle of nowhere, and we light the rag on fire. And then we take the bottle and fling it, fling it hard down the road about 20 feet, so it hits the pavement good and hard, and it didn't break.
It went ting, ting.
And so beer bottles don't break as easily as you think. But I have a theory about the origin of this particular thing.
Okay, let's hear this.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I think that somebody decided to insert this into the legend at some point.
This is the glass bottle.
The glass bottle that won't break, no matter how hard you throw it against the wall. I think whoever was doing it was some guy, probably in his late teens, early 20s, who was being a complete flaming and thought, I know, I'm going to trick all these people that go out there into smashing bottles and leaving broken glass everywhere. and so I think that's what I think it was.
Could be. All right. Well, and we're not done here with the legend the stories around the legend. There are threads out there that say the name of the town was actually Skull and not Stull. So the town is Stull. And people are saying that the T was actually a K at one point, so it was the town of Skull. But the residents changed the name to Stull as a way to try to repent from the bad deeds that had happened there and throw people off from the trail of everything wrong that was done.
If you're going to change your town name from Skull
to Stull,
I mean, just change it a little more, maybe.
Yeah, really.
Maybe Scroll or Heaven. Really, the fact that you change one letter in your thing, that's probably not going to help so much. Maybe just be no, we're called normal now.
Well, no, they just weren't as creative in the olden days.
Apparently.
Evidently.
Maybe.
They didn't have the internets
to
help them.
They could have come up with something else.
This is pretty eye-opening, though. I never knew that Kansas was such a hotbed of black magic and witchery.
Evidently it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's actually get back to the gateway of hell, because we've been talking about Satan appearing and the reasons that he is. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the gateway is supposedly located at the church, and it's supposedly located on the side of the church, but it's not easy to find. This is because it isn't used by people much, excluding Satan, because he's not a person.
Well, fair.
But people don't use it.
Witches aren't people either.
Oh, okay. And so it's been overgrown with grass and scrub and all of that. But people say that if you do manage to find the stairs and you start to walk down them, and again, this is the story, you will lose control of your body, and supposedly it would feel as if another force was compelling you forward. Okay, and then the story diverges into two veins. Version 1 says that if you do indeed take the stairs, you'll descend to hell, but you'll never be able to come back.
I don't know how anyone would know that, but okay.
Dave went down the stairs and he never came back.
Oh, or
so probably don't walk down the stairs.
A sinkhole. Whatever.
The second version is that if you take the stairs and you descend to hell, it's going to take you 2 weeks to make it back out, but you won't realize that much time has passed, because yes, this place also causes lost time.
I just want to, all this makes me think about is Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where she turned me into a newt. Well, you don't look like a newt. Well, I got better. I was in hell. Satan took me. Well, you're not in hell anymore. I got better. I came back.
I actually want to go check this out, because I think it would be actually very cool if I could go visit hell, check it out, see what it looks like,
come back
and then come back.
And then you know if you needed to repent. Awesome.
If I knew that hell actually existed, I would clean up my act.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right, so I guess we're gonna take a road trip, because I'm okay with Joe descending into hell.
Yeah.
And maybe never coming back, but maybe coming back in 2 weeks.
You never know.
You're just gonna hang out for 2 weeks.
We could do it. Probably.
Oh yeah. Well, thankfully, pre-recording, we'll be all right for a little while.
Yeah, we're fine.
All right. So here's one thing to note: the church, it's not standing anymore.
Oh. Yeah, that's
it's
what
gone.
I hear. Yeah.
Evidently, in 2002, though, who did this is in a little bit of conflict. The church was torn down.
Oh.
And there's versions that say, and these are versions that you read about, is that the property owners say they didn't authorize it and don't know who did it. And then there's other versions where it said that the property owners did authorize it, and they hired somebody with a big chunk of machinery, a cat or something like that,
knock it down.
to come over and just knock it down, and it collapsed. It just fell right down as soon as they got to it.
Yeah, and actually, another thing that I heard is that because there's houses right there. There's people that live very close by.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, one of those had noticed about a week before this, when it was torn down, one of them had noticed that one of the walls had collapsed in a storm or something.
Well, and that's a very good point. The thing was a giant hazard.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it hadn't had a roof for years. Folks, to describe this to you, it was stone walls. It wasn't brick.
Yeah, stacked stone.
It was stacked stone walls, which when they don't have a structure on top to stabilize them, tend to bow and want to fall over.
Well, especially if one wall or corner collapses, you really lose a lot of support and stability there. And so I think the owner probably just had it knocked down for safety reasons and liability reasons.
Yeah, I lean that same way, because some of the articles I've read say that they're quoting the owner of the property, but it's the internet, and some of these stories you can't really track to tell if that's really their source or not.
Yeah, well, actually another theory that I heard, I made it up just now. The owner wanted to build a retaining wall, so he needed some rocks.
You're obsessed with retaining walls lately.
I just love them.
That's because you want one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here, we're going to go to a anecdotal bit of legendary.
This is not anecdotal.
Did I just make that word legendary? Is that a real word?
Yeah.
I think
not legendary, but legendary.
I think the word you want to use instead of anecdotal is apocryphal.
There we go.
That describes this to a T.
Okay.
Yeah.
According to this, the Pope visited the United States back in the 90s.
Well, he did. Let's be fair. That's a true fact.
He did.
Okay.
And he told his pilot to go around the entire state of Kansas because he didn't want to fly over unsacred ground.
Well, let's be fair. Unsacred ground just means there's unsacred airspace, too.
What? Wait a minute, what?
The air
doesn't make any
No?
Oh, the air above. So
Yeah.
you're saying it's like a giant column all the way to
Yes.
space of unholy ground.
Unholy
Yeah.
scariness.
All the way through the universe.
Well, all that's circulating around, all these stories are circulating around, all of these things that we've just covered in however long it just took me to
30
go through 'em.
minutes?
Yeah.
It's no wonder that every year gads of
Hundreds of people
come to the graveyard to try and see Satan make his grand appearance.
And you know that every single one of those people after he drinks his beer, has to run over to the church and try to smash it against the wall. Right?
Well, because there's so many people coming to the graveyard every year, the graveyard is now circled with cyclone fencing. Mm-hmm. And if you look at this on Google, if you go to Google and you go to Street View, you see nothing but chain link fencing around the entire thing.
Yes, and no trespassing signs.
And no
too.
trespassing signs. And every year on Halloween, the cops are there, and they are escorting people away from the area, and they will threaten them with fines and jail time for trespassing on private property.
Yeah, apparently the locals are actually not real thrilled about this.
Oh, no, they hate this.
Yeah.
Let me just be very, very obvious. They hate this story because they have relatives who are buried in that graveyard, and there's a lot of vandalism that comes from a bunch of drunken yahoos out on Halloween, smashing bottles, knocking over headstones.
I'm sure it's not just that. I mean, like, we've just spent, the last, half an hour recounting all of these different things that have been tied in. And, if your family lives in this place for long enough, maybe it was your, great-great-grandfather who accidentally killed that boy in a fire and
brought Satan upon the whole thing.
Well, no, but, that's a tragic story of your family's history, and it's being exploited to be a part of Satan's grand plan. That's tragic.
There's people now, who have died in the last year who buried. It's not as if this is a historic graveyard. This is an active graveyard. So there are people who died within the last, probably, I'd say 6 months. Buried in this place.
I mean, it's got some very old graves in there.
It does, but it's got some very new graves. And there are stories of people going there days after Halloween and finding the headstone of their loved one knocked over and broken because people were doing whatever they were doing and knocking stuff over.
Although, how do you know it wasn't Satan that knocked over that headstone?
I was going to say it just shows them for showing off their wealth of getting a headstone that's above ground.
Oh, I know.
Wow.
Yeah. We're both horrible people, Joe.
Yeah, I guess so.
You both are.
I have to say that, and this is to me kind of unfathomable, but I go for walks and runs through the nearby Pioneer Cemetery near my house sometimes. And there's vandalism there too.
Oh yeah,
and it's kind of amazing that people would vandalize a headstone, but people do it.
People vandalize everything, and I don't understand it. I understand graffiti as an art form in certain applications, but tagging I don't agree with because that's usually just a defacement of property.
Pretty much.
And usually there's nothing artistic about it. Okay, well, that tag might be artistic in its own sense, but when you reproduce it 100 times on every signpost and building, then it just becomes junk.
Agree.
So it's just visual junk. But
I agree. And by the way, when that tagger is caught, I think he needs to get his special tag tattooed on his forehead.
Well, let's move not to theories, but problems with the stories. So all of those legendary things that we just talked about, there is a ton of problems with them, and I just want to suss out a couple of them right off the bat. The town of Stull was originally named Deer Creek. And that community in 1899 got its own post office. At that time, it was then called Stull after the name of the first postmaster they had, Sylvester Stull. So the town being named Skull, that's out.
Okay.
That's out right off the bat.
Well, unless Sylvester Stull used to be Sylvester Skull, then he changed his name.
Listen, Skeletor, stop it. Okay. Do you remember the part that there was the one part of the legend of the mayor being stabbed?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the town hasn't officially had a mayor
Like ever?
ever.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, it's kind of too small to really have a mayor, don't you think?
It is.
And by the way, I assume the local police are like the county sheriffs, right? Because I'm
I
assuming they
believe
don't have
it's
a
the
police
county
department
mounties.
there.
There's no actual Stoll police force as far
Sure. I don't
from
think
what I
so.
can see.
I doubt it.
So yeah, obviously there's no one there that's actually the mayor. That's a problem, unless they're saying, "Hey, we could call you the mayor." Don't call me the mayor. I know what happened to the last mayor.
Yeah.
No, I'm not taking that.
It's like being the drummer for Spinal Tap.
All right. So I haven't been able to find any concrete evidence that the stairs and their cover exist. Now, there are a lot of stories about people searching for them and quote-unquote finding them, but nothing is verifiable. But here's something I want to point out is that there may have actually been a set of stairs there that would have led to a basement. Because if this church was built in the 1860s, think about it. It's Kansas.
You want a
it's
basement?
hot.
Well,
you need to store food down there.
Well, but
And
also,
you want a
Kansas
place-
is lousy with tornadoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if everybody's at church and a tornado comes along, you hustle them into the basement and you hide there.
yeah.
So there's a very valid reason why there might have been a set of stairs
Oh, absolutely.
at
Yeah,
the church.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing to say that it wasn't there, but nobody ever finds them. So that's one thing that I want to point out about the stairs themselves.
I also guess you could say like some crypts have like a couple stairs down, and if like the crypt or like the building structure above it had for whatever reason been demolished, there would be like some random like a couple stairs down. I could see how that could have like ballooned out into something like this. It's so hard to tell in a cemetery with a church in Kansas where
Yeah, no, I mean there could have been what is it? It's what do they call the big buildings that it's not a crypt, but what is the building that's above
Mausoleum.
ground? Yeah, mausoleums. I mean, mausoleums have been put on the ground.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it could have been that's what it was.
Yeah.
And that's why there was a set of stairs
it's
there.
hard to tell.
The last problem that I have with this whole story is the Pope. It's always the Pope.
Yeah, I know.
Remember that whole story about him diverting his plane?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
There's nothing that shows any record of his plane ever.
Supposedly that story, if I remember right, appeared like in Time magazine somewhere around that time. But nobody's
Which
ever been
is
able to.
Weird.
Yeah, I suppose that's what people are claiming. But if you look
It's
at Time
not in
magazine,
Time.
it's not
Also,
there.
Pope Benedict, not the most superstitious of the popes.
No.
Pope Benedict? You mean John Paul?
No, wasn't it Pope Benedict at that point?
No.
In the 90s,
It was
no,
John
John
Paul?
Paul.
It's John
It was John
Paul.
Paul.
Also not
John Paul
the
II.
Superstitious of the. Anyways.
No, I mean, the Pope's not going to be afraid of Satan. And, this story is like so many internet stories. They start out as a clean ship that's just come out of the shipyard, and they sail up through the waters of the internet, and they become encrusted with many, many barnacles. And,
Internet
Internet
barnacles.
barnacles, yeah, and that's what happens, I think.
Yeah.
So many of these stories.
Internet barnacles.
Yeah, internet barnacles. And so the
Phrase
Pope,
for the day.
Yep,
yeah,
I
so
agree.
the Pope's story is yet another barnacle in this story.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the theories.
Finally.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, theory number one. It could be real. Well, it could be. Don't give me that look.
Well, Satan might actually exist. I don't know
Okay.
how often he comes down to Earth. But
And yeah, let me go through this. Is it
We're up.
there are a lot of stories around about gateways to hell and their locations. Now, strangely enough, none of them, the major ones that you find out there that are gateways to hell, none of them are in Kansas. But that's okay. There are lots of things, though, that are referencing gateways to hell in major populated areas.
yeah,
Stoll is not.
Isn't there supposedly one like right close here, like down in Clackamas or something?
Yet I didn't see that one, but there's so many central major cities have them associated with them, and then major historic cities always have them associated with them. So there's these stories all over of the gateways to hell.
Yeah, if you're Satan and you're going to have a gateway to hell, you want to put it in a major city because you're a lot closer to shops and services and stuff like that. You don't want to have it in the middle of nowhere.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's in the major areas because of the atrocities that happen there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, but let's put that part aside, that fact aside, is that if we think about this from a theological standpoint, I don't know, is theological the right word to use? I'm not sure, but
Philosophical, maybe.
That's probably the better word.
Theological is like really,
Philosophical,
yeah.
it's possible if Satan's real, and I'm not saying Satan is or is not real, but then what criteria would he or she or it, because again I don't know,
right,
use to determine where to come out into the world at? I mean, this place is off the beaten path. I completely understand that. But, I mean, I've read all this stuff about these strange occult sites that are where Satan may come from. And if you think about it, okay, let's just say that there is some random point where all of this occult stuff is happening. Think about it, this is the best analogy I can come up with. Think about it from the standpoint of almost like radiation. So there's all this occult stuff going on, and it builds up like radiation at that location, so then it becomes a hot zone. So then that could theoretically be a place that would pop up on Satan's radar to be a good place to come, because there's all of the, it's just embroiled with it, and it's just such a hotbed that might be a spot that's an easy access point.
So he senses, Satan senses that there's a lot of like boneheads who would be easy pickings and good recruits, and so he senses that, so he just makes himself a little gateway to hell and comes out.
No, what I mean is, let's say, and this, I'm making this up just to try to help foster this explanation. Let's say that there is satanic worship, and so there are there's offerings, there's sacrifices, there's atrocities committed at this area, and so it's seeped in all of this really bad stuff. That would become something that would come up on a satanic radar, for another way to look at it.
Yeah.
So it's a ping.
But I guess, like, if we're gonna make that argument, then like there are literally millions of better places in this world than Stoll.
Yeah, and also there's no evidence whatsoever that there was ever any sort of satanic dark arts, witchcraft or anything else practiced in Stoll.
Well,
right?
but I want to go back to what Devin said briefly, which is the stories always say that there are X number of gateways to hell, but do we know that's true?
No.
Why couldn't there just be gateways, plural, and there's no number to it?
Yeah, why can't the whole world be a gateway?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think the entire world is kind of a gateway to hell.
I mean, like, it's just like that when you kind of go down that rabbit hole, is a term that we use on this show a lot. You're going down that rabbit hole, and like to say like, well, this is one of the like smallest places in America, right? It's really small.
Very small population.
And I think that like probably the percentage of bad things that have actually happened in this town to the population versus like the number of years it has existed, fairly low. So if we're saying that like this level of percent of corruption over X number of years equals
murders, robberies, etc.
Yeah,
I'm sure
corruption's a great phrase.
Satan's gate.
I'm sure.
Then
Yeah.
Like seriously, just like then there's a gate everywhere, and like we're just screwed. So for me, it's like this. It's I talk about Occam's razor sometimes, but it is right. It's like either the entire world is a gateway to hell, which like Joe is willing to argue, and that's fair.
It is,
but so either we're gonna say the entire everywhere that human beings exist is a gateway to hell, or we're gonna say that is not a valid theory.
Yeah.
I'm willing to run with that.
And here's the deal: is Satan started out life as what?
An angel.
He did. Yes, and so you
God's
never
favorite angel.
Yeah, exactly. And you never hear about angels needing like an escalator down from heaven to get to the earth, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Satan, if he does exist, I don't think needs a stairway or portal or anything else to visit the surface of the planet. I think he can get here, whenever, wherever he chooses.
I don't. My religious studies are very weak, but I do remember having seen some things that I've read that when Satan was cast out and then sent to what would be his kingdom, which was hell, he couldn't just come to earth. He had emissaries that could come there. So then that would foster that idea of it had to be something special to allow him his visa for, a term that we use for access to get into the area for a limited duration of time. I don't want to go too far down this.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat this too much because this is so open to interpretation. There's so many ways that it can be viewed, but that is just, if that's just this one theory that I've seen.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next one.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Which, again, is on the vein of it's real, but this vein says that the townspeople know it and they're covering it up.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and say right now, if this theory is valid, then that means that the townspeople are all demons, Satanists, worshippers.
You do
right?
watch Supernatural.
No, I don't. But I mean, it's just that just follows, right? Is that if the townspeople are covering up Satan's literal stairway out of hell, they are horrible human beings.
Or maybe they're demons. I mean, I think we need to go there and check it out and see if they have red glowing eyes.
We're gonna
and if they talk like this, then that'll be kind of a clue.
Or they live in fear of it. And let me run through some of the stuff that's been put out based